Hi, everybody. I'm Jude Treader Wolf. Welcome to I Know This Is True Stories of Freedom and Independence. We're very excited to be part of the Freedom Festival, and storytelling is a wonderful way to express worlds and life experiences in a way where we can understand each other, learn from each other, feel less alone, feel illuminated, maybe even laugh. That would be so nice. I hope that happens. I do encourage you to share your love of the storytellers as you're experiencing them, and you can do that in the chat. It's always nice to hear things in real time in a room, but we're not able to do that over Zoom as if we were in the same physical space together, but we're in the same sort of spiritual space, and you can share your comments and at the same time listen to the stories that we have prepared for you. I am a storytelling uh, fan and professional storytelling coach, and I do lots of shows of all different kinds. And I think that stories are one of the most, they're really the currency of human contact. They're the currency by which we exchange energy with each other. And sometimes stories are windows into another world that we might otherwise not know anything about. And sometimes stories are mirrors that show us something that we are also going through, and we feel less alone. I believe you're going to really enjoy this lineup tonight. And thank you also very much for being here. We will also put in the chat any links that the storytellers want to share with you while they're up and performing. So if there's a website or an event or something coming up for them, we'll put it in the chat while they're performing. So you can copy and paste it and find that information. We can also email it to you after the show if you're interested. You'll find their websites, you'll find them. I know you're going to fall in love. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Well, I think that's my cue to introduce our first storyteller on the theme of freedom and independence. Jacqueline Hayward is an acting and speech coach. She is a writer and editor who is working on a memoir right now, and she works for Improv Science, which is the host of this, the producer of the Freedom Festival. So I'm so excited to welcome to our virtual stage, Jacqueline Howard.
Hayward.
Hayward. I do this every time.
Thank you, Jude. Excited to be here. I call this story Failing, Falling, Flying, and I begin with a poem. When you tug at the ripcord and the parachute does not open, and there beneath you lie endless forests, and it is plain that you will not be saved, and there is no longer anything to cling to, no longer anyone to be met on the way, spread your arms softly like a bird, and in folding space, fly. This is a poem titled When the Parachute Does Not Open by Yevgeny Vinokurov. I came across it, I think, in my 20s, certainly many decades ago, when I knew very little about what I am. And it's a poem about surrender, about letting go into the unknown. What I did know always was my kinship with the unknown, with the mystery, with the fun of getting lost and allowing myself to fall. I claimed this poem as one of my guiding lights. The story from my life that I'm telling takes place in a mundane setting, far from anything mystical, a college forensics tournament, the national competition at the end of the school year in some forgettable hotel in some forgotten city. I was a mature student, as they're called, at the far end of my 40s, and going to college following a divorce. I'd left school at 14 and was working as an office junior and training to be a secretary, my conditioned path, before my 15th birthday. Some greater adventure than taking dictation and making coffee for the men I served called me. And at 17, I left England. I moved around the world for 9 years before landing in San Francisco. I was a nanny in Switzerland, an ESL teacher in Spain, an actress in London, a hotel cashier in Bermuda, a barmaid in the Bahamas, a legal secretary in Chicago, Boston, and Miami. I was a waitress in a top-notch ski lodge in Vermont, serving Ted and Bobby Kennedy and drinking hot chocolate in the kitchen with an 8-year-old Caroline. I was a journeyman carpenter for 2 years. I built a big barn and fine furniture. I was a nightclub singer, a professional belly dancer, a ballet teacher, and an outrageous, audacious performance artist. I was many things, and I knew not what I was. What I knew was how to live in the unknown. Marriage brought 2 children, and learning that I needed to sometimes be the wind and not always just be blown by it. Divorce brought enough money to attend school full time. I was quickly drawn to OI, oral interpretation, bringing words to life, and I was invited to join the speech team. In the poetry category, I won first place at every tournament, including at state. And competing with me through all these rounds was Diego, a young man from Brazil, a handsome, wiry, black-haired boy with intense eyes. He was my greatest competition, or let's say I was his. I won first place and he usually took second. We were always in the same rounds and always chatted. There was something dark and mysterious about him. One of his programs was a monologue as a character who practiced macumba, a religion to be found in Brazil, considered by some to be black magic. My turn followed his in the round, and I was horrified to discover that I was in a trance when he finished and had to will myself out of the chair and out of the trance. I learned to tune him out when he did that piece. Now we were at nationals. Before the final day of competition, we were given an evening off, time to relax and play. I returned from strolling around town and stepped into the elevator at the same time as Diego. There we were, facing each other across the elevator, just the 2 of us. I smiled, he smiled back. Then he said, "I could poke your eye out, you know." Well, this was so bizarre that I simply assumed he'd been drinking and said with a grin, "Well, so what? I could poke yours out too." He said, "Yes, but the difference between you and me is that I would really do it." I was quiet then and left the elevator as quickly as I could. The next morning, the day of the poetry round, I woke up with my left eye looking like a cherry, and I do mean that red, dark cherry red. He had poked me in the eye energetically. I went to my round, stepped up when it was my turn to read, feeling self-conscious about my creepy eye. Having performed the piece all year, I knew it well. This time, though, I realized halfway through that I'd skipped a whole section, missed essential elements of the story. It was nationals, and I had blown it. I looked at my pages and said, "Oh, shit," and fumbled for the right page. I had blown it. Now there is no way I'd win gold. Not only did I lose my place, but I said shit in front of everyone and in a college setting. Something happened then. Knowing I would not win, I gave up. I just let go and flew. The way I said it afterwards is that I flew with the angels. I had no awareness of having to speak the words. The words just moved through me. I disappeared, and the words had a life of their own. And here's the thing. I won first place. With a cherry eye and a fumble and an ochette, I won gold. I went on to get a master's degree in drama therapy with a focus on transformational storytelling, guiding others how to step into the unknown and allow words to move through them. So this is what I know to be true. To be free, to learn to deeply trust that we are always held by something bigger than ourselves. We have to let go of wanting to always be on the right page. I return to the poem. When you tug at the ripcord and the parachute does not open, and there beneath you lie endless forests, and it is plain that you will not be saved. And there is no longer anything to cling to, no longer anyone to be met on the way. Spread your arms softly like a bird and in folding space, fly. There is no way back, no time to go balmy, and only one solution, the simplest. For the first time, to compose yourself and to fall with the universal void in your embrace.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Jacqueline Hayward, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much. Beautiful images in that poem about freedom and falling. And yes, beautiful. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Our next storyteller is an actress, a voiceover artist. She runs a foundation that she started called the Burning Bush Foundation. If you just Google her name, all these things will come up because she's very active. And right now, she is involved in the Fave Chef competition. She's a cook and she does an online cooking show. And she's involved in the Fave Chef competition that needs your vote. She needs your votes tonight. So we're putting for her to make the next cut in the competition. So in the chat, we'll be putting the link if you want to give a vote to help Renee go to the next level. And I hope you will. And I know you're going to enjoy listening to her story. Please welcome Renee Joshua Porter.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. That was beautiful, Jacqueline. Well, the story I would like to share goes back to 1986. I am attending American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I want to be an actress. My father is very anti-acting. He reluctantly pays for the classes if I would agree to attend Hunter College because he told me that actors have holes in their shoes and you're too smart for that. Well, I am at American Academy for Dramatic Arts. I am really just going through the motions at Hunter. I would attend, but I wasn't even really matriculated. And in between, I am working in a showroom for a textile company, F. Schumacher. And I got promoted to be able to go to their main offices at 28th and Madison. So I was at 79 Madison Avenue. I had moved from the showroom and now I was in the corporate office. I was the face that you would see when you came to the corporate office right there in HR. And because I was always a theater major. I knew how to greet and how to smile and how to be polished and what to wear and to be engaging and to be inviting. So, right when everyone would come and go to their offices or go to the elevator, I spoke to everybody. I would talk to Mike and I would talk to Steve, who were in the technical area. I would talk to Liz, who was over in accounting. And sometimes Liz and I would hang out together. Back in those days, you had single college age kids that would hang and they would go to boat rides and party. And I liked hanging out with Liz twice. I didn't hang out with her the third time because one, she took a really long time in the bathroom. And when she came out of the bathroom, she was always rubbing her nose and her mood had changed. And I had a feeling something else was going on with Liz, something I wasn't into and I didn't want to ask. So I just started to avoid any time outside of work with Liz. And then there was my best friend at the job, Reggie. Reggie was from Guyana. He was about 10 years older than me, and he was so funny. We would crack up laughing. Both of us would connect of having that Caribbean background and Caribbean parents, and we would laugh and joke, and we both had a love for shrimp rotis. In charge of the HR department was Jack, Jim, and Nino. They were older, middle aged men that were super polite, very courteous, never inappropriate, and very kind to me. Nino would even talk about how he ate one meal a day. He would always tell me how he ate one meal a day. He had to be about at least 20 to 30 years my senior. And in my mind, I'd always think at some point he's going to keel over one meal a day and he's old. This man doesn't have long to live. But I listened as he explained it. Now, Jack and Jim, they were really nice, always polite. Hi, Renee. Hi, Jack. Hi, Jim. Hi, Renee. Really nice. Now, there was somebody at the job that a lot of people didn't like. It was Carol. Carol was over the accounting department. The word was that she wasn't very friendly. I know she really didn't speak to me, but I didn't take it personal. Then I found out that no one in the accounting department liked her either. Well, I was making do at the job. I would talk to everybody as they go back and forth. And in between, I would call my friends that were working at their jobs. I'd call my dad, I'd call my mom. And if my calls weren't too interesting, I'd find some time for filing. I had it all running together. What would happen on the weekend, though, which was pretty interesting, is that Reggie, my best friend, who was in the shipping department, he would call me on the weekends, and usually he was drunk. And when he got drunk, he'd call and profess his love, how much he loved me, how much he cared about me, and would I be his girlfriend. I would laugh, hang up the phone, say you're drunk, and leave it like that. Monday would resume, and we would go like nothing had ever happened, like the conversation had never took place, with our platonic banter back and forth until Friday night, and drunken Reggie would call again. And that happened, and that was pretty much the ebb and flow of our relationship. Well, one day, Jim calls me into his office. Now, Jim is the head of HR. Hey, Jim, what's going on? Hey, Renee, how are you? I'm doing well. What's up? Well, Renee, we really like you. We think that you're super friendly and you're polite and you always have a smile. And it seems like your coworkers really enjoy talking to you because everybody comes by your desk. Yeah? Okay, what's up? Well, Renee, we needed to slow down some. We need them to stop coming to your desk as much as they do. And with those personal phone calls, do you think it's possible that you can really limit it to when it's an emergency and that maybe you can do a little bit more filing? If you're bored, because Jim was really polite, I could find some more things for you to do. but we really have to cut down on the talking, cut down on the socializing, and the personal phone calls. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, I get it. And then I burst out crying. I started crying and crying in his office. Jim is staring at me and his face gets really beet red. He's like, Renee, what's the matter? I'm sorry, did I insult you? And no, Jim, no, it's nothing that you said. Then why are you crying? I could barely catch my breath. Why are you crying, Renee? I hate it here. I hate it. You hate it? I hate it. I hate coming in at 9. I hate leaving at 5. I hate taking lunch at 1 to 2. I hate sitting behind the desk. I hate answering phones. I hate it. Jim looked really shocked. Well, Renee, what are you going to do? How can I help? You can't help. This is my 2 weeks notice. I quit. You're quitting? Yeah, I quit. I can't stay. I feel like I'm suffocating. Jim looked so confused. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I want to act. I want to perform. I love being on stage. I, that's what I want to do. So you're going to do that now? Yeah, after this job is over. That's why I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice. Oh, okay. I wish you all the best, Renee. I do. And if things don't turn out, you can always use me as a reference and you can come on back. You hear? And I could see a little slight smirk and a little twinkle in his eye where his eye had shifted from concern to amusement. But I ignored it. Well, those next 2 weeks, everyone passed by my desk. Hey, hey, so we heard you want to be a star. Hey, trying to get to Broadway, huh, Renee? Hey, do you sing? Do you dance? Are you going to try to go on the Apollo? It had started to buzz throughout the whole department. Everyone knew Renee hated the job and she was quitting. She wants to be a star. I felt uncomfortable, even though I played it off, kept a smile on my face. Inside, it felt like a joke. Inside, I didn't even know how it was going to happen. All I knew was that what was happening right then just didn't feel normal. Well, one day, I'm in the bathroom, not too long before my 2 weeks was up. And while I'm in the stall, another woman is in the stall. And she says, so, you want to be a star, huh, Renee? I recognized the voice. I just couldn't believe they were talking to me. Uh, well, not necessarily a star. I wasn't thinking about that. I just was thinking about the fact that I just want to perform. I just want to act. I just want to be on stage. We both exited the stalls. And there was Carol from the accounting department, the one that nobody liked. And she stared at me and she said, I used to want to be a rockette, a Radio City rockette. And I auditioned. And I made the first cut. And then when it was time for the second cut, I didn't make it. And I gave up. And that's why I'm here now. So don't you give up. Don't you let anyone stop you from following your dreams. You hear me? And even if you get disappointed, you keep doing it until you reach them. At that moment, as I was washing my hands in the bathroom, something started to saturate through me. I started to understand why she was so disgruntled, why so many people didn't like her when she didn't seem to like anybody either, because she didn't like where she was at and didn't seem like she liked herself. But in that one moment, she helped me. She helped me to realize I didn't want to be her. I didn't ever want to be captive in a place that I wasn't supposed to be in because fear had me bound. Well, I quit that job in October, had to move back home to my parents because I couldn't afford the apartment that I had gotten earlier that year. Listening to my dad say, "I told you so." I started working temp jobs, but in between, I started to go on auditions. I would work hard on the auditions, and by January, I had received a national tour of For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow is Enough. It was a play by Ntozake Shange. It had a real major cult following, and I got to tour all through the United States as one of the principals in the play. I had taken a moment and jumped, and guess what? I flew. From there, it was regional theater and national commercials. And I realized something about my freedom. Freedom is when faith refuses to let fear break its focus. That's what I found out. Freedom is when faith refuses to let fear take its focus. Regardless of all of the jeers, regardless of the skepticism, regardless of my inner doubts, there was something inside speaking to me. You weren't made for this. You're bigger than this, or different than this, or just shaped differently. And stop worrying about coloring within the lines, because maybe you don't have to color at all. Maybe you don't even like crayons. All you know is that it's your book, it's your pages, it's your life, and you're free to write whatever you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Joshua Porter. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wow, you never know what the unhappy person in the office is thinking and feeling, what the unhappiness is in somebody. What an inspiring story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, yeah, following your dreams can really be a scary, scary thing. I wanted to write down the quote. Maybe Renee put in the chat. Freedom is the faith to I didn't memorize the rest of it. But it was a beautiful statement that you said twice. That would be lovely. Put that to put that in the chat as something we could all take with us. Our next storyteller is a friend of mine for many years already, and I hope many years to come. She is a retired psychotherapist. She is a psychodramatist. She made multiple trips to Russia to train psychotherapists in psychodrama over there. She is currently working on a memoir. She is also an author of a book about psychodrama. Please welcome to our virtual stage, Sue Barnum.
Unmute. Got it. My story is called Integrated, a Segregated Life. It's 1950 in Baytown, a small Texas town of 20,000 on the Houston Chip Channel. I'm already aware at 8 years old that I'm a weird kid. I notice everything, things that nobody else notices. And I'm always asking, why? Neither my family nor the culture has answers for me. I'm a square peg in a round hole. I'm hoping that'll get better. I noticed that my grandmother, that I call Grandbirdie, insists that her black maid always come in the back door. I noticed that there's signs all around Baytown that say whites only and coloreds only, the latter on shabbier doors and broken water fountains. I stay awake at night thinking about these things. Sometimes I try to talk about the things I notice. Mama, why does Elizabeth always have to come in Grandbirdie's back door? And why does Baytown have all these signs that say black and white people have to be using separate bathrooms and separate water fountains? Why are black people treated different than the way we're treated? Mama is sitting at the brown Formica kitchen table. She is reading Agatha Christie, as she did every day, smoking an unfiltered Camel cigarette. She takes a long, loving drag on her cigarette and puts it carefully down in the ashtray, puts the bookmark into her book, turns to me with a sigh, puts her hands on the table and says, Sue, they are just some things that you have to accept. This is the way things are done. And like it or not, you have to accept it. But why, Mama? Why do you talk so mean to Beulah when she comes to clean our house? Without putting down her cigarette, she takes her right hand and backhands my face with her paperback book. Stop it, Sue, just stop it. Well, I'm sure I cried a few tears over that. But a few days later, I try the same questions with my daddy while Betsy and Mama are filling the dishwasher. Betsy's my sister. He pulls me onto his lap and hugs me. Honey, it's just the way things are. Would you like to take a walk in the garden? I'll bet there's some tomatoes out there that need picking. What do you think? Well, he knows I love to pick tomatoes with him. But no answer there. I can usually talk to Grandbirdie, the grandmother that I call Grandbirdie. She talks about her life with me and asks me questions about my life, which my parents don't. She's my safe place from Mama, who really doesn't seem to like me much. But I watch Grandbirdie with Elizabeth. As sweet as she is with me, she's not sweet to Elizabeth. She speaks in a tone of voice that's bossy and mean. She never talks to me that way. It didn't occur to me to try to talk to kids my age. Kids don't think about things like this. They would think I'm weirder than ever. But I think about these things in bed at night. Seventh grade, 1954. I'm 12 years old. Mom and Daddy are making a big trip to Maracaibo, Venezuela to see my godparents, their best friends, Aunt Ola Mae and Uncle Larry, who works for Creole Petroleum. Grandbirdie comes to Baytown from Houston and spends hours every day sewing beautiful dance dresses for Mama. They have full skirts and sparkles in their many colors, and they have shoes to match. I've never seen anybody dressed like that, much less my Mama. Such fancy clothes. I wish I could wear clothes like that. I love sparkles. Grandbirdie stays with Betsy and me for the 2 weeks that Daddy's in Maracaibo. He's on business. But Mama stays another 2 weeks. I'm glad for her. She's enjoying being with Aunt Ola Mae. We all love her. But whatever is going on there ruins my Mama. She comes home a roaring drunk and is meaner than ever to me. She blames me for every feeling she has. She says I'm homely and fat. And worst of all, she blames me for her drinking. I notice that every time she slurs her words, stumbles, or lets her cigarette burn down to the nub, scarring the furniture that Daddy lovingly made. Even the new Yamaha piano that Daddy bought her has a cigarette burn right there beside the keyboard. But mostly I notice that every night she bounces off the walls of the hall as she traipses from their bedroom, past Betsy's and my bedroom, to the kitchen to fill her glass of scotch again and again and yet again. I tried talking to my sister. Betsy, Mama's drinking is out of control. She's meaner than a snake and does nothing but sit all day at that kitchen table, smoking and reading until she starts her scotch. Then she drinks till she passes out. I think she might be an alcoholic. Sue, do not say that word again. She is just not very happy. I feel sorry for her. Don't you go calling her names. You don't even know when to shut up. You never know when to shut up. But I don't shut up. I have anger pent up from age 3 when she decided I was a bad kid. Who knows why? And she begins to criticize me day and night. Mama, you have no right to tell me how to act, I say when she starts to criticize me. I'm right in her face. You have no right when all you do is drink your scotch, bouncing off the walls to get more scotch, and more scotch until you're drunker than Cooter Brown. Of course, she's pissed at me and she swings, but she misses me. I'm too fast. I'm especially enraged when I hear from their bedroom one night, Mama's hoarse voice growl at Daddy. All right, just get it over with. I know that Daddy adores her, and I despise her for hurting him. Maybe Betsy's the only one who doesn't get the brunt of the drunkenness. She's the Mama's little blonde angel. I'm the redhead who looks like Daddy, and he's sometimes in the hot seat too. I try again and again to remind Daddy and Betsy how serious Mama's drinking is. The damned Empress has no clothes on. But they're not listening. Daddy ignores me. He never confronts her. He can't bear for her to be mad at him. Betsy just tells me to shut up, as always. It takes me about a year of being a first-class bitch to Mama to get the rage out of my system. Finally, I turn to my own life, which is getting pretty interesting because there are boys in it now. Much more interesting than trying to rein in Mama's drinking, which is getting nobody anywhere. You know, we might as well be in the mob, where you never call things what they really are. Tony Soprano was in sanitation, not a mobster. I've been trying my whole life to say what I see, and I get nothing but trouble for being truthful. Evidently, there's no place for truth in alcoholism or racism. In the fall of 1963, I'm at Granbertie's house. She lives close to Rice. I'm sewing a dance dress for a big event at Rice, where I'm a senior. Johnny May, Granbertie's black masseuse, comes to the front door, and without thinking about it, I let her in and give her a big hug. When Granbertie hears our voices, she shows up from the kitchen and scolds, Johnny May, you know better than that, pointing to the back door. I'm horrified. Granbertie, you can't do that. It's 1963. Young lady, this is my house, and I make the rules. I'm speechless. She usually listens. She couldn't tell it was important to me. But when I look at Johnny May, already headed out the front door, she quietly says, it's all right, Miss Sue. Don't you worry your pretty little head about this. The resignation in her voice broke my heart wide open. The dance dress seemed vain and frivolous. I lost interest. Black people are suffering, being treated more like animals than people. And these are people that I love. I'm furious at Granbertie, but I know it's pointless to try to talk to her about how important this is to me. She's well steeped in the racist culture that doesn't give a damn. When I try to talk to people, this is just the way things are. Don't worry, they know their place. God made different people in different groups, and they're here to help us. I know this is bullshit. But I had finally gathered the courage to speak my deep beliefs about the racist culture to my family. Yep, I'd been shot down, but I could feel a voice inside my body saying, "You did it. You spoke your truth and you can't quit. You are on this earth to speak your truth." I hadn't realized how much of a pedestal I put Granbertie on. She is just a flawed human being after all. Though I love her with all my heart and she's the best mama I've had, she will go to her grave with her racist feelings. But I can do something different with my love and respect for people of all races and creeds. I vow that moment to pursue a path of honoring all human beings. And now I am free to do so. I know I won't do it perfectly, but I have tasted freedom. There is no safe way to speak up about controversial things like alcoholism and racism. I will speak up. I have to break the rules because they don't serve love and justice. I know I'm going to continue to get in trouble, but as John Lewis said, it's good trouble. P.S. It's 2023 and I am 80 years old. My sister Betsy died of emphysema and alcoholism 8 years ago, just like my mama did in 1971 at age 56. I know that I can only change myself, not another person, no matter how much I love them. I've spent these last 60 years of my life as an activist. I'm a faithful Al-Anon, the sister organization to AA for the family and friends of alcoholics. This group has been a savior for me, teaching me interdependence rather than codependence, like my own family, where everybody was trying to live somebody else's life, anything but their own. So I learned to live my own life. I didn't get disinherited, but I was not respected well in my family. But much more importantly, I have been in an anti-racist book group for 3 years with 9 other psychotherapists from a group therapy group that we're in. We have been studying the history and consequences of slavery, the laws that were put into place to replicate slavery. You might not know about those, but they're there. And learning my path of action to contribute to deconstructing systemic racism in this country. At last, I am learning how to act on my deepest beliefs. I am integrating my life that had been segregated for me. I am only one, but I am one. And I still think about these things in bed at night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue. Thank you so much to take in with that. And thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself and your story here tonight. Well, the next storyteller is someone I know very, very well. I've known this person basically my entire life. And the reason I do is because it's me. I am the next storyteller. So without further intro, because I already introed myself, I'll start. So I'm in this fancy high-end restaurant called Aria in downtown Sydney, Australia. It is one of these beautiful restaurants with beautiful big wooden tables. We're at an oak table, 5 people sitting in a circle, furniture that is both elegant and comfortable. There's Diana Krall playing on the sound system that is loud enough that you can hear her, but not so loud that you have trouble talking over her. There's the vision of the Sydney Opera House out the window. It's just a beautiful world that still makes me feel very awkward, because it's also the kind of place that has absurdly small portions on bizarrely large plates that look like they were designed by Picasso for unbelievably inflated prices. It's the kind of place that makes I just walk in the door and I feel outclassed, I feel underdressed and overwhelmed. I feel like I don't feel free in an environment like this. I feel restricted. I feel like there's a manual for how to behave that I never read, and some people somehow just know, and that I'm waiting to trip over something and break an $800 vase. And I'm not buying, because the people that we're with, another reason it feels a little awkward to me is because we're with people that we are very casual friends with. Now, this is an Australian couple, not their real names, Mike and Julie Gray, and their office manager, Junie. Now, Mike and Julie are publishers of an Australian series of graphic novels that Mike also draws and writes for, that my husband, who's a comic book collector, happened to be a huge fan of. And this story takes place in 2001. Well, 5 years earlier in 1996, we met up with these people, Mike and Julie Gray, and Nick and Mike really connected over many, many things. In the graphic novels that Nick is a fan of, and also they're both huge, obsessive readers of books about the Kennedy assassination. So Mike Gray, being an Australian compatriot, wants to know all about it. Nick gives him books that they email and talk about. And once a year, we have a fancy lunch on them at one of these restaurants that I would otherwise never be in. Because walking into one of these places really flips a switch in me to make me feel like I'm 14 years old at the senior prom. And I'm shocked by this, because we're in Australia in this trip to go to a conference on unconscious bias in healthcare, which is really about how racism, sexism, homophobia, all the isms are baked into our thinking and affect the way we perceive people, and affects the way healthcare providers provide care, the way they see or don't see their patients. And when I'm in my professional role talking about this topic that I'm very well versed in, I feel very confident. I feel like me. I feel free. But in a world where everybody has a lot of money, $400 a person for this lunch, I feel very small. Basically, I feel like my body is the plate and my sense of self is the portion. So here are the people. Mike is this wiry, thin, very intense guy who, but has a very commanding presence. So when he orders, he says, we will have 4 of the glazed carrots, we will have 4 of the grilled asparagus, and we will have 4 of the duck confit, and so it shall be done. He's like a commander sending troops into battle. We shall have this food. Julie is very, very sort of Mary Poppins, but without the warmth. Just spits about everything good. I'm not trying to control you, but there are certain things that I believe that you should be doing right now, and I have very strong opinions about them, not to try to control you or anything. And then there's Junie. She's kind of Mrs. Kravitz from Bewitched, an Australian Mrs. Kravitz, I would say. She's gossiping about everybody. She's, oh, did you see that couple over there? They seem very in love. They're both married, but not to each other. She loves talking about everybody at the restaurant. And I'm stuck in this little bubble talking to the ladies while Nick and Mike are talking about the latest JFK book that they're concerned with. And Julie says, well, you have to have the lamb. And Junie goes, oh, you have to have the lamb. Everyone has the lamb. And I say, no, I don't eat baby animals. I can't do that. And Julie says, well, everyone has the lamb. They're known for the lamb. And Junie says, well, it's not a lamb, it's lamb. And I say, oh, okay, I'll try the lamb. And I feel very awkward because I want to say no And the whole table is covered with these huge plates of food that they've ordered because they want us to try everything. So they put a couple of pieces of lamb on my plate and I'm pushing them around. And then Julie says, this sauce is divine. I think that's saffron. And Junie says, it is saffron. I looked up the recipe and Julie says, oh, I can get saffron from a spice shop in my neighborhood. Well, I could until they came to my neighborhood. And Junie says, oh, I know. When they come to your neighborhood, well, everything changes. And I say, when who comes to your neighborhood? And they say, the Jews. When the Jews come to your neighborhood, well, they just ruin everything. And I say, what? Are you kidding me? Well, actually, I wish that's what I said, but what I really said was, excuse me, I thought you said the Jews. And they say, like, obviously, I feel my stomach tightening up, my throat is tightening up. And then Mike joins the conversation and he says, yeah, they take over your neighborhood and they ruin your neighborhood. And I say, oh, well, maybe your lunch is being ruined right now because half of our family is Jewish. But you know what? That isn't even the point. It doesn't even matter if there's Jewish people in our family. This is just wrong. This attitude. Well, guess what? That is not what I said. What I said was, well, I certainly don't see it that way. And I feel even smaller and more diminished and so completely thrown. And now I keep looking at Mike because Mike, the odd thing about a very rich guy like him, that he has this toupee on his head that is nothing from nature has ever touched this toupee. It's gray and it's blonde and it's glued onto his head and it's very strange. And now my eyes are drawn to this toupee and I think, here's this guy who's very, he could play Henry Higgins in any local production of My Fair Lady. He's got that commanding way about him and this very odd toupee and this anti-Semitism that's just coming out of every pore. And I still feel intimidated by these people. And now I look up and Nick and I are caught in a gaze of stunned discomfort. And the three of them are looking at us like, what's wrong with you? And I look at Nick and I realize I'm just going to have to pivot because I don't know what to say. And I say, well, Australia really, really pulled it out with the Olympics in 2000. Great job. Remember when we met last year and you didn't know if we would make it, if Sydney was going to do it, and you did wonderful work. It's fantastic. And then Mike gets even more up in his thing and he says, I was never so humiliated as when we had an Aboriginal woman leading the opening ceremonies of the opening of the Olympics. And then my husband says, wait, Kathy Freeman, the world-class Australian athlete that really put Australia on the map. And I say, yeah, Kathy Freeman was on the cover of Time. You should be really proud of Kathy Freeman. She's phenomenal. And Mike sits back and he says, it should have been a white Aryan man leading that ceremony. And by ceremony, I know what he means. He means the world. And Nick says, no, it's time. Kathy Freeman, you did the right thing. Your country did the right thing. She is a national Australian treasure. You should be very proud that she made your country look so good. It's time for people that have been pushed back and held down to take the lead, not just be at the table, but take the lead. And now they're slack-jawed at us. And I'm thinking, uncomfortable? How does it feel? And I wish I'd said it, but I didn't. What I said was, well, this was interesting. And we don't have coffee and we don't have desserts and we don't have a relationship after this lunch. And I leave this environment that already has made me feel so diminished, really thrown by this because I'm aware, really for the first time, that I have a set of tools and detection abilities when it comes to unconscious bias. But when it's conscious bias, I mean, proud, out there, anti-Semitism and racism, triumphant anti-Semitism and racism, it completely throws me off. I am not prepared for it. And I know that I have a lot of work to do on that. So there are some things that are glaringly obvious, the elephant in the room, the thing you can't take your focus off of, but are still very hard to talk about. Casual racism, casual anti-Semitism. And I've been working ever since on freeing my voice to speak up in those situations in a way that I feel good about. And the other obvious glaring thing that you can't take your eyes off of and needs to be addressed is that toupee. That's my story. Thank you.
I love it. Oh.
Thank you very much, everybody. All right. This brings us to our last storyteller of the night. He is a producer and on the board of the Story Collider, a storytelling organization that I was lucky enough to tell a story on in 2021 and be on their podcast that deals with stories that relate to science, true personal stories that relate to science. He has been named by Time Out New York as one of your comedy obsessions. There's other information that you'll see in the chat about this fine man. Please welcome to our stage, Gaster Almonte.
Hi. What's up, y'all? Thanks for having me. I will be sharing a story that is nowhere near as serious or as heavy as all the others you've heard today. I just want to set the tone plate clean, if you will. So yeah, let's get into it. Everybody should work retail once, right? I believe that in my heart, mainly because it teaches you about the best and worst in people. My favorite customer ever showed me the best and worst in people at the same time. You know, I used to be a retail furniture store manager, and one day this customer walked in and he said, "Hey, I want to return my mattress." I said, "Sure, boss. How long have you had it for?" He says, 7 years. The best and worst in people, right? The worst in people wasting me and my employees' time returning a 7-year-old mattress. But the best in people to believe that it was possible, you know? Dream that dream. That's beautiful. We need more of that in this world, you know? Now, you got to understand a few things. One, I'm not supposed to be here, you know? And I mean that in two senses. One, like it was technically my day off. One of the other managers got sick. They called me to sub in. They said, "Hey, the assistant manager will be there, but we need one of the lead managers in the building." I stepped up. I said, "Cool." But two, I'm also like in spirit not supposed to be there. I was starting to do well in stand-up and storytelling. I was performing more. I had gotten a couple of TV credits. I had a manager and he was trying to push me to go full-time, but I felt reluctant because while I was starting to make money, I wasn't making job money from talking on stage, you know? And, you know, for the people watching, I'm sure you notice if you've lived anything remotely close to a life, dreams don't come like in a straight pattern, you know, like you don't just make it happen at once. The process of pursuing your dreams is very much like, you know, plan as you go, you know. Like just to kind of be clear, I was on TV on NBC and sold the sofa the same exact day. You know, it was very humbling to have somebody like recognize you at a Bob's Furniture and say, "Hey, didn't I see you on Comedy Central?" And me have to answer yes, but you should also get the warranty. You know, those two things shouldn't go together. But it's the situation I was in, you know. So when I'm looking at this guy face to face, as a manager, I know my job. I'm supposed to dismiss this guy. He's wasting our time, you know, trying to return a 7-year-old mattress. So I tell him, hey, listen, boss, what's wrong with the mattress? And he's like, oh, I got bed bugs. And I was like, let's recap, brother. Just so I'm understanding you, you think we sold you a mattress 7 years ago that came with stealth bed bugs that were waiting for their day to strike, and today was that day? And he looked at me and he said, that's exactly what I'm saying, sir. He doubled down on that nonsense, you know? And like, I looked at that man like the audacity, you know? But also like with a sense of like, I wish I had those kind of balls. Like that's incredible, you know? Just to believe the lie so much. If you've never worked retail, there's a few things you should know. One, when you are in a retail furniture store environment, all the sales reps are in an open layout of all the theoretical furniture, and all the people that close out sales for those people, the secretaries, are all at the front of the store. So when this is happening, understand that I am standing next to 4 other customer service reps who are closing out sales with 4 other customers. So this isn't like a private interaction, you know? Most of them are young people straight out of college, except for one of them, Janet. She's been with the furniture store for 20 years. She hears what's happening. She gets up. She says, I quit. I've heard it all. And I don't blame her. I say I believe her, you know, and I think that's a good last story to tell. She walked out the building, collected her last check by email. You know, second thing that you should know, most furniture stores have code words that they teach the staff so that they can communicate in a way that doesn't fully give away what's happening. For example, if like a kid gets lost in a furniture store or a retail environment, you'll hear people say code Adam. And it just lets the employees know to go stand by the doors, cover the doors, and we can look through the store with the parents to find the kid without alarming the other customers, right? We got a ton of these things. Fun fact, there is no code for, hey, there's a guy requesting a refund at the front of the store because of bed bugs. I don't have that code. I don't know how to call for help. I don't know what to do in the rest of the sale. So I tell him, hey, listen, boss, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Unfortunately, I can't give you a new mattress for the bed bug situation. You've kind of scared off one of my employees already. But yeah, I think that unfortunately after 7 years of ownership, you kind of just have to take that one. And he looked at me, he said, listen, boss, one or two things are gonna happen here. Either you are gonna give me a new mattress, or I'm gonna give you bed bugs. Then he reached inside his jacket, pulled out a mason jar full of bed bugs. He shook it a little bit so I could hear the cap is loose. The stakes are real, you know? Now, if you've worked in any furniture store where they sell mattresses, they'll sell a product called like a bed protector. It's something you put over the mattress that prevents liquids and ironically bed bugs from going on the mattress. The way they demonstrate the effectiveness, most furniture stores will have little mason jars throughout the store, which a cut of the cloth that covers those mattresses so that you can see with liquid inside that nothing pours out. So you can demo the quality of the bed protector. So when this guy is at the front of the store shaking his homemade mason jar, everyone at the rest of the store thinks I'm doing a great job demonstrating the quality of these mattresses. You know, they're like, oh wow, Gastor's got the customer really shaking that mason jar, proving the quality of these bed protectors. They have no idea. In my heart, I'm panicking. I need help. You know, finally, one of the other sales secretaries up front is able to call my co-manager to come over. He comes over cocky, thinking that he's gonna try to help me close out the sale and get credit for helping the customer instead of me. The secretary tried to give him a warning. You know, she was like, hey, we got a bug situation up front. You should come over. So he comes over and he's like, hey, So what's bugging you guys? And the customer turns around, mason jar in hand, and my co-manager George just starts panicking. No, 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 no. Just a fun fact, you never kind of say no in sales in general. He said more no's in that one sentence than he's ever said at Bob's Furniture ever. He's like, so what's happening? What's happening, Gaston? What do you need help with? And I'm like, hey, listen, customer here wants a new mattress. He wants it free because of bed bugs. I informed him that we don't typically do that. He tends to disagree with our warranty situation. How about this? Let's find him a new mattress, see if there's something around the store that we could work with. And I'm hoping that my co-manager George is smart enough to also use this time to A, look for a mattress, but B, call the police officers and warn our coworkers to start slowly leaving the store. And in about 10 minutes, the store starts emptying out, and George starts making his way back, looking through the store, trying to find the mattress that he could give him. And I'm trying to buy him time, you know? And I don't know how you guys live your life, but I have personally never had to make small talk with somebody trying to rob me with bed bugs before. It was a very awkward interaction. If you have advice for future interactions or so, please send them over. But it was my first time. In the store, when we are doing a really tough sale, I would typically offer milk and cookies. I don't want to give you cookies if you're trying to give me bed bugs. So I wasn't in the mood to offer sweets, you know, but I'm trying my best. You know, I'm like, hey, how about the Yankees? They not biting me. Maybe you shouldn't let that mason jar fall on the floor and have other things bite me either. I don't know. I was feeling miserable. But eventually George makes his way over and he's like, hey, I got a mattress that we can kind of give him, and the customer agrees. And as George is telling me that, I see at the back door that 2 police officers came over. George has done his job, giving us a way out of this safely, but also called the authorities. The police officers come in and they walk towards the front counter and they're like, hey, so what's going on here? And I'm like, hey, listen, I'm sure you heard this on the phone, but I don't blame you for wanting to verify. I am currently being robbed at Bedbug Point. This gentleman here would like a new mattress. I don't know if you know how business works. We don't typically do that. But considering the current power dynamic, I'm inclined to agree. I would love your input on this situation. And the police officers talked it over to themselves. They looked at us, and it was like, well, I guess we're going to see how you handle this from here. That was the official NYPD response. You got this. Fun fact, for those of y'all that don't know, I learned the hard way. Police officers are also people scared of bed bugs. They wanted nothing to do with this interaction whatsoever. And I stood there and I watched 2 of my warehouse employees come out to the front of the store, load a mattress into this guy's car, and he drove off. They took his information. They tell me they got to him later, but I was impressed. This was a modern day pirate in Brooklyn. Incredible. After you have had your store robbed by bed bugs, you are not allowed to reopen right away. For safety reasons, we literally close the store for a week. They fumigate the store, and then they test it twice before reopening. On top of that, anyone there in the moment has to take off their clothes, have it sprayed down, and it's put in a bag where it's kept for a week if you decide to keep it. So just know that morning, I left in a suit and tie as a manager. And when I got home, my wife saw me get out of my car in boxers. So she had questions, you know? She's like, hey, honey, I don't know what you're selling at the store, but I feel like you're crossing the line, you know? And we sit down and she sees I'm a little exasperated. I've had a long day. I don't typically get robbed at Bedbug Point. And she's like, what happened? And I was like, honey, I think I'm gonna give my 2 weeks. I'm gonna go full time performing. And she was like, why? What's going on? She's like, I don't know if it was any particular moment, but today I watched a man with far less going on, far less on his side, go after what he wanted, you know? And I got to believe in myself to give myself the freedom to go after my dreams as well. Thank you so much. Hope you guys had a good time.
Esther, thank you. I learned so much. First, I learned bed bugs are an actual weapon that will intimidate the NYPD. That is not
Yes.
that is a revelation, and really, it shouldn't be. That should be something we assume. But who thinks of these things? Wow, what an interesting panel this was. We have really, we were going to stop at 8:15. It's okay if anybody wants to ask a question of the storytellers. We could spend maybe 5 minutes doing that if you want to, or we can wrap up the show. You really got to hear the 5 stories actually, and I'm wondering if there's any questions that we should answer. What do you think, Stephen? Do you see anything?
I haven't seen any questions, just some amazing comments here in the chat throughout all the talks. So appreciate all the feedback there. But if you do have any questions, just start in the chat. We'll give it a couple of minutes here.
Okay. I'll put my glasses on and look at the chat.
Excellent.
Well, we're so grateful for your attention, and I'll just riff a little bit here. I love that Renee and Gaster's stories, unbeknownst to any of us, were directly parallel about living your life with a hope and a dream, and then something snapped in that, like, I'm willing to take that risk and free myself to pursue something. And we need to hear about that. I think it's important to share that with people, and for people to know what someone's process was with that. There was parallels a little bit between Sue and my story as well, which wasn't intentional, and Jacqueline's was artistic and kind of weaves all this together in a tapestry of ideas about stepping out. Well, Jacqueline's story was in that theme of going after your voice as well. Are we seeing any questions?
Yes, we had a question. How do you choose your story?
So anybody want to I'll say a 30-second answer. How about if everybody, just if you have something to say about that? I love getting this theme of freedom and independence. I will sit and journal about that idea, and think about what's the opposite of freedom: restriction, because stories are often about, they're about transformation. So what's the opposite of the thing you're aiming at? And then your life unfolds, like moments are revealed. That's how I choose a story from journaling often. How about you guys? Anybody?
Okay, so it was actually my story that initiated this event, because Sue and I are friends and we're just chatting one day, and I happened to just tell her this story, and I said, wow. And I'm also on the team of the Freedom Festival. So I had freedom and independence very much on my mind, and what events we could create for the festival. And I said to Sue, hey, that's a story about freedom. How about you ask Jude if she's up for creating a storytelling event? So that's how mine came about.
And mine came about out of that same context. I was with Jacqueline following what was happening with the Freedom Fest and talking to Raquel and the group, and my anti-racist group did a performance the other night, just sharing what we do. And then I thought, oh, I want to tell a story about this really deep feeling of mine. And it just seemed to fit freedom and independence just really well. So that was, I think I wrote 3 stories before I found the right story, but that happens sometimes. The others were fine, but this was better. And I enjoyed it. I'm glad you did.
Renee?
Yeah, for me, how I go about finding stories is I kind of just sit with it. I sit with the topic And I just allow, like Jude used the word reveal, I just see what is revealed with the topic. So a lot of times I just avoid talking, I avoid any type of movement, and I do a lot of prayer too, but I also just sit and see what stories come to me and then which ones I'm able to follow all the way through, because sometimes a moment will come, but I'll say, okay, there's too many parts that I to weave. No one will be able to get all of this. So when it comes to me and I'm able to follow it all the way through and it makes sense, then I'm settled on that's the story I want to tell. So with this one is just very vivid in my mind. I haven't shared it in a storytelling event. I've told it to kids and inspirational and as far as motivational to students and that forth. But when I thought of freedom, for me it's such a pivotal time in my life that it sticks, even though it's well over, like, 40 years ago. It still sticks very, very much in my mind.
I'm performing all the time. Like I do like 500 to 600 shows a year. So I'm constantly looking for stories. So I do three things pretty proactively. One, I say yes to anything that sounds weird and different. Just because I like putting myself in interesting situations. I like learning. I think it's a fun way to experience life. And two, I make it a point to do like a monthly conversation with a friend of mine who I haven't talked or spoken to in over 5 years. It's just a fun way to kind of catch up, and they tend to remind you about stuff that you forgot about yourself, because 5 years is about enough time to change as a person, where like things you would have done would like shock you a bit. And three, every time I feel anything strong during the day, happy, sad, whatever it is, I make it a point to write it down. I have like a really extensive Notion app wiki page where like I just write all of my like random feelings, and it'll be random, like that sandwich was crazy, to like I can't believe like my daughter like really surprised me with a gift, the full spectrum of like all of those feelings. I'll write it down, and then like it'll help me find a story later. That way like I get the spectrum of like uh a silly moment story that's like lower stakes, and then like when I talk to friends or things of that, or I'll take an adventure and say yes to something odd, those tend to give me bigger, more like theatrical story moments. But I don't necessarily want to do one or the other full time. I want to make sure I have a variety. So
Well, I'm just going to hijack that for 1 second. I love that you're sharing, Gaster, about writing it all down. All ideas, all are welcome. And because I think when we let our minds say yes to all these ideas, then more ideas come, because the door is open. And when you do 500 shows a year, you do need a lot of ideas. You
it run out.
definitely need a lot of material. Thank you, guys. Any other thoughts or questions that anybody, Stephen, you see any other questions there?
I think we kind of covered. Raquel had questions about how this how the stories made you feel, and if they were your if the stories were new to you. And then the next question was about your rehearsal process and how you get prepared.
Well, I'll quickly say this was the first time that I performed this story. It happened in 2001, and I've been almost afraid to tell this one, to find the arc of it and the inner, anyway, the balance between what's happening inside and what's being said, and to find the right framing. So this seemed like a good, the theme of this show seemed like an opportunity to work on it. And I just say it out loud over and over and over again, and I make my husband and my two best friends listen to it over and over again. Over and over and over again.
And over.
They still hang out with me, which is kind of amazing. What about you guys? So the first question was, is this your first time telling this one, or is it, and then also a bit about your process of preparing?
For me, it was certainly the first time, yes. And one thing that was interesting for me in this process was that was just a little story. I mean, I probably told Sue that story in less than 2 minutes, because my story was all about that moment of getting the red eye, and then what happened to me in the reading. So that was a special experience for me. But I knew that Jude was inviting us to speak for 10 minutes. And so I didn't want to do just a little 1.5 minute story. So I developed it. And in developing it, I discovered how tied in it is with a huge part of my being, this relationship with the unknown. So it was lovely just developing that and owning that, giving it language.
For me, I'm in the process of writing the memoir, and so I have a lot of my stories just right at hand, and I wove together pieces of different chapters to write this story. So I mean, the stories were there inside of me, and I too write ideas. I mean, I have a whole journal book full of ideas. I've only told 2 stories publicly, but I really like it, and I will be doing more of it. So, and I mean, I have stories happening every day. It's just the way I think, you know. So it was easy and it felt good, and memorizing, I do just what Jude said, because if I don't have anybody here today to speak to, so I just walked around and said it all day long, you know. So I really enjoyed it, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, I this isn't the first time I told it. Well, it won't even be the only time I tell it tonight. I'll be doing 2 other shows after this. But yeah, no, I try to like run through a story several times. I want it to never sound like I'm reading or like it's written. So I purposefully call friends first, say it to them conversationally, record the conversation that takes place last, and then that one I type out so that way the wording sounds like myself. Just because I, as I mentioned, I worked sales and corporate, and I find that when I type out a story first, it sounds too professional, and I want it to sound conversational. So yeah, I always go through that process. So yeah, it's definitely not new. And I'll do a ton of variations of it. Like this is more of a storytelling show, so I'll go through the whole arc. Whereas I do stand up as well, so like I'll only focus on like the beginning and middle portion of it. They don't really care about what came about the situation. They just want to know the funny situation. But creating stories is great. I feel that it's one of the coolest ways to bring people together. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And it's been fun kind of slowly seeing how far they can reach and how diverse the people that kind of get into it are. It's pretty dope. I love it.
Thanks, Gaston.
For me, my process is I talk to myself all the time. So I'm constantly talking to myself in the car, constantly talking to myself in the shower. So I'm rehearsing the story, like you said, over and over and over again. This story in particular is the first time doing it in a storytelling show. I've shared the story with a lot of youth primarily because I mentor a lot of youth. So I'll tell them different things about my, youth. But for the most part, for me, the rehearsal process is just over and over and over, rehearsing it. And then I do write it down. I find that when I write it down longhand, because I do keep a lot of notes, like Astro said, in my phone, I have an app that I do a lot of note taking. But when I have a story and I write it longhand, it kind of just has a way of, I guess, becoming layered inside of me. So this is the first time doing it in a show format. And so as I do it, I want to tweak it or some parts I left out or, so that's the good thing about the recording. You can always go back and, start to polish it from there. But for me, it's talking to myself and then writing it out longhand. And I do have a friend that sometimes I'll bounce it off of, but I didn't get a chance this time.
Well, thank you all for your sharing about your process and where your ideas come from, and Gaster just shared where you're performing. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Great. Do you have a website that's your own website? Did you
Yeah,
put that in?
literally my name, gastroalmonte.com.
Great. Perfect. It's really been such a treat to have these people be involved in this event tonight, and I'm very grateful to all of you for listening. And thank you so much for sharing your talent and your ideas and your great humanity. That's our show.
Thank you to Raquel.
Yes, thank you to
Thank you,
Raquel.
Raquel, and thank you, Jude, for doing the show. Thank you.
Thank you. So Improv Science, everybody, check the Freedom Festival, other events through next Monday or Tuesday.
Final
said
session will be
Monday.
July 3rd on Monday, where we bring people together to talk about all the wonderful things that have happened for the 15 days, which have been moving, just as today was. You brought us to tears, to laughter. We're so touched and so grateful. So I hope people will go to the freedomfestivalusa.org, sign up for all the events like you did this one, and we'd be happy to have you in the conversation. Thank you, Jude. Thank you all. It's lovely. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you, Raquel.
You're welcome. Bye.
Everybody,
Woo!
good work, everybody.
Bye.